informative with Hashem's help, and we're gonna dedicate it to refuah shlema of certain people. And as I was posting this information around, I was notified that one of these people passed away. So unfortunately, that's the nature of things these days. Things are happening very, very quickly. So nevertheless, refuah shlema for Purim, Bad Mazantu и Shmuel Chaim Ben Ella, and Bi'ul Nishma для возвышения души Avram Sevi Ben Tziporim. Okay, so let's start. We have this very, very special mitzvah in the Torah. It's called Hafrashat Challah, to take off the challah. This is how it works. The Torah tells us when you come to the land of Israel, you're gonna have the special mitzvah. You're gonna take the beginning of your dough. You're gonna take part of your dough, and you're gonna take it off. You're gonna take part of that dough, and you're gonna give it to Kohen. You're gonna give it to Kohen, and that's gonna be the fulfillment of the mitzvah. What's the point of this mitzvah? We have a lot of different ways to support the clergy, so to support the Kohanim. Back in the days when we had the Tanan, Beit HaMikdash, right? When we had the Beit HaMikdash, we had these people called Kohanim. We still have them today. But back then, they really needed our support. Today's day and age, the Kohanim, they work wherever. Lawyers, doctors, accountants, name it. Back in the day, they all worked in Beit HaMikdash, and therefore they needed our support. They needed the support of Bnei Israel, of the Jewish people, in any way we can to enable them to serve in the Beit HaMikdash. So one of this was like Truma. About 2% of your crops, person is supposed to give to Kohen on a regular basis. Then there are other ways to support Kohanim, like whenever a person did Shechita, he would slaughter the animal, certain parts of the animal he would give to the Kohen. And one of the ways is to support them is through giving them the challah. Right? So every time person would make bread, a certain amount of bread, right? We're going to talk about the amount. He would take that part of that amount and give it to Kohen. That's how we supported our people, the people that served on our behalf in Beit HaMikdash in the temple. Okay, so far so good. Thumbs up. Any questions, comments? So that's the beginning of the whole concept of halal. Okay, there are three classical commandments that are on women usually, although men can fulfill some of these commandments by themselves. And if there's no woman, the men would step up and do the mitzvah. One of the three is the separating the challah from the dough and giving it to Kohen. Now, this mitzvah, today it looks very, very different because number one, most of the Jewish people are not in Eretz Israel. This mitzvah, the way it was intended, when majority of the Jewish people are in Eretz Israel, in the land of Israel, then when this mitzvah kicks in. But today, most of the Jewish people are not in Eretz Israel, and for those of us that live outside of Israel right now, I'm talking to people in the United States. We live outside of Israel, so what do? We do not give it to Kohen. But if we don't give it to Kohen, why do we even separate this piece of dough? So the halakha tells us it's to remember. It's to remember the concept, to remember the mitzvah, so the mitzvah doesn't become forgotten. And so we have this, it's basically rabbinically established these days that we take off the challah. It's not from the Torah, it's basically the Rabbanan, it's rabbinic. So how does it work? We put together dough. How much dough do you need to have? This is probably one of the most important halakhic details of today's class is in kilograms. I can tell you in kilos, and we can do the math in pounds as well. It's 1,560 grams, a little bit over a kilo and a half. So let's do grams to ounces, and we're gonna do 1,560. So it's about 55 ounces. Okay, 55 ounces of dough. That's when the person has to separate the challah. If it's less than 55 ounces, he doesn't need to separate the challah. It's still a nice thing to do, but the person is not obligated. Okay. So now, next item. So far, so good. Okay, person is not supposed to use the dough until he takes off the challah. Thank you for the feedback. Okay, so person is not supposed to use the dough until he takes off the challah. And these days we burn the challah. Why do we burn the challah? That's the question. So the way it works, the halacha explains that whenever a person is in a state of tuma, meaning, and there were different ways a person can become tameh, but whenever a kohen is in a state of tuma, even if he received the challah, which is pure, he's not allowed to eat it. He's in a state of tuma. Okay, and the other way around, when whoever made the challah, if that he or she was in a state of tuma, and he made the challah tameh, a person the kohen cannot eat that challah. The kohen cannot eat that challah. Why? Because the challah is tameh. Okay, so now we have this situation where most of us today in the state of tumat met especially, some way, one way or another, it's assumed, but it's assumed that we came in contact with tuma or tumat met, which with a dead body, and therefore we can no longer eat the challah if we are kohanim, and we can no longer give the challah to kohanim if we're preparing the dough. As a result, the challah is not going to kohanim; it's getting burnt instead. Although I'll tell you, as I was researching this very interesting subject, I was looking at the Rambam, Maimonides, and Maimonides says very clearly, just like it says in Mishnah Masechet Challah, that there should be really two chalot that we separate outside of Israel. One we burn and one we give to kohen. That's how he paskins. But again, he brings up this whole issue with the tumah, and he says, really, if you can find a kohen who's a child, you just give it to him. But again, most of Achronim, and especially the book, I don't know, most or not most, but Achronim, the later rabbis, and the book that we're learning today, Yalkut Yosef, is paskins basically, he rules that you have to burn it, and that's the custom. I haven't seen anyone ever give the challah to kohen, even the child. I heard people do it. I never seen anyone do it, but that's, if you burn it, you basically safe. That's the minhag. That's the custom around the world. Okay, so let's see. Any questions, guys? Ladies, any questions so far? Okay, according to Torah, according to the law of Torah, even if you take a tiny bit of challah of that dough and you separate it, before we separate, we'll make a bracha, and it could be a tiny bit, and that's enough to fulfill the mitzvah of hafrashat challah, of separating the challah. Then it's being turned in the foil or anything and burned. So now the minhag of Ashkenazim to take a kizait, but really it's not necessarily at all. Right? If a person take even a tiny bit, he already fulfilled the mitzvah. The big question becomes is once a person took off challah and it's gone. Now he either lost it, or a child ate it, or let's say birds ate it. What does he do then? Well, the answer is nothing. What can he do? the moment he separated the challah, it's gone. He fulfilled the mitzvah and it's good. What if it becomes mixed back into the dough? That's a bigger issue. If a person separated the challah and then it got mixed back or mixed together with another piece of dough. So the answer is like this: if there is a proportion wise, it's 1 to 100, then it's batel, right? It's getting anulirutza, right? It's getting basically absorbed by the majority of the dough. However, if the proportions are less than 1 to 100, then it become a problem. I have to reach out to Posek, and he has to deal with this. But it can really become a problem. So better to, once it's separated, better to burn it right away. What if person is not able to burn it? Can he just throw away the challah? So ideally, the challah should not be thrown away. It should be treated with respect. It should be treated with sanctity. However, if there's no other way to discard it, let's say for some reason, I don't know for what reason, but for some reason, person is not able to burn the challah, he's able to wrap it up respectfully and discard the challah. That's okay. Okay. Here's another very interesting halacha. It only applies to 5 types of grains. All right, the 5 types of grains, it's the same grains that we can use for matzah baking. It's the same grains basically that if we made bread from these grains, then we need to take off challah. However, if we made, let's say, I don't know if people make bread out of rice. Do people make bread out of rice? Let's say they do. Let's say I've seen rice flour, or let's say corn flour. Something like that, a person would not be obligated to take off challah from that kind of dough. That's not considered halachically. It's not considered like bread. So, so that's the law. Basically, 5 type of grains, which is wheat, barley, oats. What's the other name? There are 5 types of grains, like the classical grains that the Torah considered grains. These grains, they require the challah separation. However, rice and other kitniyot, other kinds of beans, a person is not obligated to take off challah. The question becomes here when you mix the two. Let's say you take a rice flour and you take a wheat flour and you mix the two. What's the halacha? The halacha is basically like that if it tastes like bread, like regular wheat bread, a person has to take off the challah, has to take off the separated piece. If it doesn't taste like wheat bread, then he's not required to take off the challah. This is only in regards to rice flour mixed with wheat. Let's say you mix the wheat with like corn flour, then in addition to tasting like bread, it has to be the majority. The wheat has to be the majority. Okay, this is the halachot of mixing. Okay, we're pretty much towards the middle of our class. Any questions so far? Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, here's a few more very interesting halachot. If there are no questions, we'll just continue. The blessing. Okay, before we take off the challah, we make a blessing, and in terms of what the blessing should be, it depends on the person, because there are different nusach, there are different versions of the blessing. Yes, Junior, I have a question. What's the question? Yes, you want to unmute yourself or type it, whatever is easier. Is there a question? Let me see. Chat. Okay. So take your time. You write out the question. Okay. Meanwhile, I'm gonna continue. So before we take off the challah, we have to make a blessing. What's the blessing? It depends on the version of your, whoever you are. There's one for Ashkenazi, one for Hasidim, and here's the Sephardic version. Okay, I'm gonna tell you the Sephardic version. For the other versions, just look in the Siddur. It says Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahafrish challah truma. Okay, he brings out. This is the version of the text. Lahafrish challah truma, to separate challah, which is a truma, which is like a donation for the Kohen. Okay. Do you have to stand? Well, usually when you make a blessing over mitzvot, the person has to stand. However, there are many exceptions, especially when it has to do with food. When we say Asher Kiddishanu and it's on food, person doesn't have to stand. He could sit here. It's very much connected to food, so person could either stand or sit as he's making the bracha. Either one is okay. Standing probably is preferable. Okay. Any questions? Challah. There are three things that women are obligated to do, which is to take off challah, to dip in the mikveh, to purify from the nida, and hadlakad hanel, to light the Shabbat candles. These are, if you take the first letters, it's spelled out chana. Chana. Again, if there's no woman, a man could also separate challah. I remember when I was a young boy, I came to Yeshiva Torat Chaim, which was outside of Moscow. It was very, very nice yeshiva. I used to go there for like summer break. So one time they called me and they said, "Come, you want to take off challah?" I said, "I don't know." Like I was maybe 15, 16, I don't remember. Says, "I don't know what it is. I never done it before." Says, "Come, basically before you take it off, you make a bracha." They showed me the bracha, and there was like a huge bowl. It was for the entire yeshiva for before Shabbat. They made their own challah. It was very, very good tasting. And so all the other boys they were busy with other stuff. So when the worker says, "Come, you want to do it?" I said, "Okay, let me do it." And I was fortunate enough to do it. But If there's no woman in the house, or let's say the woman is busy, or a man wants to do it, he wants to do the mitzvah of hafrashat challah, he's welcome to do it. It's not a problem. It's not an issue at all. In fact, he's saying here that a man should try to do it at least once a year. Why? Because it's one of the commandments, and he wants to have his chut. He wants to have a marriage. He should try to do it once, at least once, once a year. A woman should try to do it every Friday if she can. Again, in today's day and age, we just go to the store and we'll buy challah. But if person could have, need enough dough, let's say has a big family, has 6, 7, 10 people in the family, then it makes sense to make the challah yourself. It won't go to waste. And if you could do it every Friday, that's the best. If you could do it once a month, every 2 months, that's great. But at least person should try to do it at least once a year. When is a good time to do it? If he has a choice, everything else being equal, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that's the best time. Why? Because okay, I'll take a question in a second. Why is that the best time? Because that's the time we're trying to earn points, right? We are like hanging in the air between life and death, and every mitzvah we do is gonna tip the scale. So between Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, to do some challah baking, that's the best, so we can do more mitzvot. Okay, we have a question here from the audience. Let me see the question here. Okay, how long to burn it for, and either to be considered burned when burning in the oven? Okay, you burn it as much as it needs to be to become not useful. Okay, once it becomes not edible, you can take it out. Okay, you don't have to burn there forever. Okay, another question. Do you burn it in the oven or on top of the stove? Okay, that's a good question. Either or. You can do it on top or in the oven. Okay, here's another interesting point. Some people, they don't like to burn it together with other food. Why? Because I'll tell you why. So you're not really supposed to derive benefit from this little piece of dough, because it's not yours. It really should go to Kohen, right? So when you burn that piece of dough, when you throw it into an oven, if you think about it, it really generates like energy, right? When you throw wood in the fire, what's burning? It's like fuel, right? It's like wood. So some say if you're putting other food inside the oven at the same time you're burning that piece of challah, that piece of challah generates heat, and you end up deriving benefit from that heat, which is not right. So the others say it's not a problem at all. It's very insignificant. It's not your intention to derive benefit from this challah, and if you're in a rush, you don't have to go crazy about it. You have definitely opinions to rely on, and you could bake your chicken at the same time you're burning your piece of challah, and not to be afraid. You don't need to be afraid. Your chicken is still kosher after that. Ideally, if you have a choice, it's better to burn it by itself. Okay, and you could either put it on top of the gas, as long as it's fire, safe, or you could burn it inside the oven. Whatever is more convenient, it's for you. Okay. Any other questions? Any comments? Okay, so we're learning, but let me see if people on Facebook, anyone is asking any questions or not. The Facebook people, I don't even know if it's streaming. I hope it is. Okay, people on Facebook, if you have any questions, come to Zoom. Okay. I hope it's streaming. Okay, let's see. The next part. We're talking about the bracha. So before person takes off the challah, he makes the bracha. He takes off the challah, and then he holds the challah and he says, Harei zu challah. This is challah. This is the piece that is supposed to go to Kohen. Now, if he didn't say Harei zu challah, it's all right. It's not a big deal. Why? Because when he makes a blessing, he shows that this is the challah, right? It's obvious. When he says Harei zu challah, it's just something extra, but it's not really a big deal if he forgot to say it. Okay, what else? Let's see. Okay, so there's a custom. Some people, after they take off challah, they say certain chapters of Tehillim. Okay, if people like to pray, women like to pray over Challah. It's a nice thing to do. Which Pirkei Tehillim? He says he suggests here number 25 and number 34. Okay, 25 and 34. Okay, 34 and 25. These are the two Pirkei Tehillim. Okay, what else? What if he forgot? What if he forgot to take off Challah? He person made a dough. A woman made a dough, and somebody called her. She got distracted. She forgot. She baked the dough. She broke it into different breads. Right. She made a big piece. She said, "Oh, great! I'm gonna take off Challah." And then she got distracted. She baked different breads. She broke it into different pieces. What should she do? Okay, so ideally, obviously, from the moment she finished kneading the dough, that's the moment to take off Challah. That's the time. That's the perfect time. She doesn't need to wait until it rises. Right? Once, if she finished kneading the dough, it's all mixed in. It's all one piece. She can make a bracha, separate the Challah. Okay. However, if it's already baked, b'diavad, if after the fact already, she could do it then. After it's baked, she could take off Challah after it's baked already. How to do it? If you only have one Challah, that's good. But a lot of times you break it into different pieces and you bake it separately. Then you have to put them in one big container. It has to be in the same container. It could be a pot, it could be a plastic container, it could be a bucket, whatever it is. But it should be all inside. It shouldn't be sticking out, right? If it's sticking out from the container, then it's not connecting to the other pieces, right? In order for it to become, so to speak, unified again, it has to be in one container and it has to be submerged under the opening of the container. And once they're all in the same container, now mitztaref, they all connect now to each other. And now she can make a bracha and separate a piece of that baked bread. Okay, again, this is b'diavad. This is only done if she forgot to, for some reason, to take off from the dough. Okay, any questions here so far? Here's a cute halacha. We have different. In general, we have a concept of if I want to do a mitzvah and I'm about to do it, and somebody else comes and he grabs my mitzvah, I can sue him for taking away the opportunity from me to do something good. It was supposed to be my mitzvah. He's basically, it's like a person stealing something from you. You could sue that person. You could take him to court. The same thing. Somebody stealing my mitzvah, I could take him to court. So here he brings a cute halacha. He says if a woman prepared a dough, I'll take your question in a second, Juni. If a woman prepared a dough, and let's say a husband, he says, "Oh, I want to do the mitzvah." He comes, he makes bracha, and he takes off the challah, and she comes home. She comes and she's like, "Why did you take off the challah?" He says, "I wanted to do the mitzvah." He says, "No, it was supposed to be my mitzvah. It took me 3 hours to put together this dough." So, there are some opinions that say that she can fine him, she could sue him for that mitzvah, and he has to pay her, he has to reimburse her for the mitzvah. And other opinions say, no, listen, they both own the dough. Whoever comes first comes first. He's not obligated to pay her for the mitzvah, but it's a cute concept to entertain. I remember back in high school, my rabbi asked one of the guys, he says, "Bring me that book." And another boy jumped up and he brought the book first. So the rabbi says, "It's very nice of you that you brought the book first, but you have to pay for the other guy because he stole his mitzvah." Okay. Definitely, usually we don't think about the mitzvot in these terms, but it's good to keep in mind that some people are so eager to do the mitzvah. Okay, are you supposed to put a key on the challah for this Shabbat, and why? Okay, so this I think it's called the Schlisser's challah, something like that, the key challah. I don't know much about it. These are getting now more from halachot into the different customs, mystical customs. I'm not. I mean, I see a lot of people do it to open up the gates of the parnasah, to open up the gates of the health, and this and that. But I'm not gonna comment because I don't know. So it's better to ask somebody who knows. Okay, good question though. Good question. If you wanna put some olives inside or some pepper to make a surprise for one of the family members, and then there you could do that also. Okay. Any questions? Any other questions, guys? Definitely, the first Shabbat after Pesach, it's a nice thing to bake challah. We haven't had chametz in the whole week. I still haven't had chametz, and now tonight, to prepare a fresh challah with your own hands to make a bracha, it's a great mitzvah. It's a great way to leave Pesach and enter into Shabbat. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Okay, so it doesn't have to be the owner of the challah to take off the challah. He can appoint somebody else. Let's say, if like in that story in yeshiva that I told you, obviously the bread didn't belong to me, but when the worker asked me to take off the challah, I did it on behalf of whoever owned the yeshiva. So the same thing is somebody will say he's a mashgiach, he works in a restaurant. He doesn't need to go to the owner to ask him for permission to take off challah. He just take it off. It's assumed that the owner appoints him. He trusts him. He delegates that responsibility to the mashgiach. The same thing at home. Let's say if a woman is busy, or she could just appoint somebody else to take off the challah on her behalf. That's totally fine. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Concern? I think we're gonna end here. I promised a short class. I want to keep it short. Okay. It's already half an hour into the class, and guys, take care of yourself. Eat well, sleep well, pray well, learn well. All these things are very, very important. Whoever is sick, refuah shlema. Whoever passed away, Tenachamu b'Gan Eden, the neshama should be in the Gan Eden, and Hashem should protect all of us. B'ezrat Hashem soon. I hope to see all of you in person, and stay healthy. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.